So again, I know some people. Lauren, I see you down there. I'm going to give Lauren a follow. Oh, I'm on the Gauss account. Uh, Lauren just got
I
followed back by Gauss. Lauren, you are more than welcome to come up. Would love to hear from you. And again, some of the legends, the ferrets, Zilare. I would love some clarification on how to properly pronounce your name. Love what you're doing in the Discord. And I know a lot of you might feel a little bit like we're away from home, which we are. But Twitter, where to go where Goss is going, you got to be everywhere. And Twitter's one of those places. So thanks for coming, guys.
have a question for you. Did you see the art gobblers drop? Speaking of NFTs.
I have seen art gobblers everywhere. I have not had a second to kind of consume any of that for just kind of leisurely NFT purposes. Have you dove in?
Yeah, I mean, I saw it pre-mint, and I just haven't had time.
Yeah.
And I should have, because they were free-minted, which is an interesting model. But it's a Justin Roiland project, one of the creators of Rick and Morty. So I knew it was going to do well. People free-minted, and then were immediately flipping them for 20 grand last night. um,
Oh, I saw a news article about that. I think they did like 24 million in like 24 hours or something like that, or 240. I think it's 24 million or so.
yeah, it was 14 million in the first 6 hours.
Which is
So
unheard of for October, November 2022.
right. It's really interesting. I'm curious to see what they do with the project. But immediately afterwards, because it's on Ethereum, there's 10 clones of it,
Yeah.
and some there's a project that's like, if you missed out on the mint, join Wave 2, and it has nothing to do with them. It's just they're using their assets, and you know, yep, it's unfortunate. Some people are gonna get scammed.
It's too easy. These
Yeah.
too easy. So if you guys aren't familiar, it's very easy to share out the space. If you just hit that little arrow going up, tweet out the space. Thank you for supporting. We're going to be doing more regularly scheduled interviews, chats, fireside chats, you name it. We're going to try to be putting it more out into this space as we collaborate with more people across all genres of Web3 and beyond, and hopefully being that bridge to do that. Gary, I know is actually I don't want to answer the question for you. Is there any kind of space? There's been a lot of Gauss content put out about the kind of the niches that we like to touch and collaborate with and develop partnerships with in terms of gaming, entertainment, film. Is there any kind of sphere that you have a sweet spot for that you would hope to really put a flag in?
Yeah, there's a number of them. I mean, part of our go-to-market strategy, which most of our regulars in the community know, is going to be the entertainment industry. But I really want us to get some solid games on board. That is something that I think, I don't want to say it's a necessity, but I think it's going to, over the next 5 and 10 years, become more and more and more prevalent. Like, if you look at the total addressable markets of them, right? Gaming is larger than Hollywood and either sports or music combined, and it'll probably eclipse all three of those combined pretty soon. So, gaming as an industry is definitely appealing for us as a blockchain and as a business, and for me personally as a gamer. I'm not saying I'm going to have a ton of time to play a lot of the games that we'll be helping build some technology pillars for, but I definitely want to see a lot of progress, and I think we're going to be able to build some cool things in that space.
That's just that stat is amazing. How much it's worth. Thinking back to I'm just thinking back when I was a kid, and you would say, "Oh, I want to be an actor when I grow up." That's okay. That's acceptable. But if you said, I want to play video games all day, like for a living, that was demonized, and it was always get off the games, get off the games, get off the games. And now we're in this place where it is just a colossal giant
Yeah,
in
and I
in
mean,
every shape and form.
I was one of those kids who said that. I I didn't have a ton of different consoles or excellent PCs or whatever growing up. I didn't grow up, with that capability financially. But like I bought my own PlayStation and what was that, mid late 90s? I think PlayStation, the first one came out in 1991, I want to say.
I
And I
think I think
got
it was
my
a little
first.
later because I remember it came out around the same time as 64.
Was it? See, that's the problem with decades. I'm Googling it now.
I think it was like 95, 96.
It might have been. I got it because I bought it and I bought Final Fantasy 7 or one of. No, it was definitely 7. So it came out in 94, which was
The first PlayStation?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I got it years after that. Anyway, I've gamed since Atari, and I always have loved it as a genre, and not just video games, but tabletop and everything. Warhammer Magic, role-playing games, be it Dungeons and Dragons or anything in World of Darkness or the Palladium systems. They had fantasy, they had a Heroes one, they had Rifts. I've gamed my whole life, less so in the last handful of years, but my view of it has always been that there will be opportunities for people to make money playing games. Like I remember Fatality, one of the first big, competitive gamers. Like that was a big deal. He was like the first competitive gamer to make $1 million. And
Unheard
it was
of.
huge. Yeah, it was huge back in the day. And it just always fascinated me as an opportunity. And then when I was in the Marine Corps, I started playing games semi-competitively. Like I wouldn't call it professionally, but I was still making a couple grand a month playing games. And that, again, a decade before when I was a kid was unheard of. So I think it's going to get to be more and more towards that, content creation, gaming for income as we go forward.
Totally. I mean, for context, I don't think I could count on one hand the number of games I've beaten in my life. And I usually gravitate towards sports games anyway. But my son is 4, and he's already beaten 3 games on Nintendo Switch, like legitimate games. Your Mario Odyssey, like the Kirby, like legitimate games at 4. Because he studied, like all he wants to watch is other people playing, streamers on YouTube. It's a different time, and it's wild. So that's super exciting. And just I'm going to stay on this course, but I know we have some people in the audience that may have this question. In the Discord, there was rumors flying around that you would announce the launch date. We know if you're following along in the Discord with Gauss content on socials, you know that sometime during this month, it is now November 1, as I'm looking at the calendar. Are you going to announce the actual date on this Spaces? Okay, so That's clarified. That's confirmed. I know there's a lot of rumbling down there. The launch date will be announced sometime here. I'll let you sneak it in whenever you want. But I think we should tease people a little bit more because I have, it's not often we have you. You're a busy guy, and I want to ask you some more questions. So.
Wait, Rob, before we get started, do you have a soundboard option on your side?
A soundboard option?
Yeah, because I saw some people on Spaces before where there's a small soundboard on your phone where you can, you know, play some effects.
I know where you're going with this. I don't see it on their phone. I think they might that might be like an extracurricular thing that maybe they're doing from a desktop, unless there's a
I
I
don't
don't
think I could
know.
do it on desktop, but that's okay. We'll figure that
This
out in the
is
future.
I mean this is Gauss Twitter space 001. Maybe by 002 or 003 we'll have something. Um,
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Mac, I see Mac down there. We'll put our heads together, the three of us. And Mac, that's super awesome news that you shared off a little while ago. Really excited about that. So back to Gary. So I'm curious. You know, we have a pretty good idea of a lot of us have a pretty good idea of what Gauss is and what. But sorry, I got a call. I don't know. I rugged there. For the people that don't know much about Gauss, what is the quick elevator pitch of what makes this chain different? And part B to that question, what made you want to build something like that?
There's a number of different things, but it could really be boiled down to the fact that I think this space needs a trusted, high integrity, high quality ecosystem, right? We need all of the decentralized spaces to keep doing what they're doing, and the builders in those spaces to keep building what they're building. But I think to get to mass adoption, having trusted ecosystems, platforms, and chains is necessary. You know, if we weren't doing this when we started this, I said this, if we weren't going to be doing this, somebody else would do it. By 2025, this type of blockchain would exist and be successful if we weren't building it. It's an inevitability, in my opinion. So I wanted to get us into that build mode and into launching in this bear cycle. I think that's, you know, the biggest cornerstone. I think anyone who's been in this space for more than a little bit is kind of tired of rugs and scams and fraud and all that BS. And more people are welcoming this idea. Just in conversation, I thought we were going to get more pushback than we have, and there's going to be more pushback from Bitcoin, Ethereum maxis or decentralized maxis. We could group all of them into that are like, oh, well, you can't be centralized, whatever. Well, you know, I think we need some accountability in this space. I think for us to really get to where we can go, it's a must have. I just got, you know, I've been scammed. I think that's, I don't want to call it a rite of passage in this space, but I think if you're in it for any real length of time, that is what it is. You know, starting back with all the disasters that happened, you know, pre 2014 even, and then now they're only getting more frequent to where there's probably what, more than 100 scams being executed every single day. I think that's a fairly conservative estimate, and you know, to the tune of many billions of dollars a year.
It's so true, and it takes literally 2 seconds to happen. You know, you get a bad link, and there it goes.
Yeah, look at Seth Green. Seth Green lost his, you know, Bored Ape and a number of other assets because he clicked a bad link. I know somebody else that's running another project who lost $1 million of their company funds because he clicked a bad link. And he's a cybersecurity specialist himself. It happens because it's allowed to happen, because in a decentralized space, you can't prevent these things. You know, most of the dexes have no ability or interest in that level of accountability, because when you accept that level of accountability, you're also opening yourself up as an entity, for us a business, whatever their structure is, to liability. And so that's a risk as a business, you know. You could see the same thing on Kickstarter. They had a significant liability at one point because a number of projects launched on Kickstarter never went anywhere, just took a bunch of money and nothing happened. And a bunch of regulation had to come about, and there's now more accountability in that space. But for things like decentralized chains, that's just not possible. Who's going to hold anyone accountable on Ethereum when, you don't know who it is on the other side of that transaction? Hopefully follow it to a fiat off ramp where you had somebody KYC'd or something.
It's so true, and it's definitely a problem. And to come to the table with, it's one thing to highlight the problem, but it's another to highlight the problem and then offer a solution. So I love that, and that's one of the biggest things that drew me in and really caught my eye, because every day there you see tweets. We talked about imposter, copycat projects. It's very easy for these scammers to create look-alike Twitter profiles with the same amount of followers following, and they blast out, surprise drop, first 200 people, get the new Beeple drop, or the new, Deadfellas airdrop. And with they rush the sense of urgency, and you're not thinking straight, and before you know it, you're drained. So I love the mission, and I love, one of the things that we've been working on in our little team on the marketing side is to develop more content on that specifically, what to look out for, the kinds of scams, the red flags that you should have your eyes open to. And if you see this, be careful, look out.
Well, and I think over the course of time, the next 3 and 5 years, we'll see more seamless user experiences. So some of that, can be mitigated in that way. But you're still going to see tons and tons of things. But with us, if somebody tries to scam our community and they see that they're interacting not with Gauss, you have to change networks to get scammed. We can't prevent that level of thing, right? We can't prevent someone from launching on Ethereum a clone project of something that's in the Gauss ecosystem. But within our own ecosystem, there's a lot that we can do. A lot I've spoken about publicly, a lot that's still, in works and being developed. Our curation process, our curation team is doing great, developing the curation process. Us holding liquidity, a very simple thing, just locking up the LP tokens at the protocol, like the layer 1 protocol level, prevents rugs, period. But that's not something you could do in another chain. And rather than launch a layer 2 on an existing layer 1, because we could have done that, we could have launched a layer 2 on top of Ethereum. But I don't see the short-term benefit really, and long-term, it would hamper our ability to continue growing out the ecosystem, because down the road, we want to be able to launch layer 2s within the Gauss ecosystem for games or brand partners or whoever. Maybe Hasbro has a ton of IP that they want to launch their own chain with in the Gauss ecosystem. We can do that. So lots of interesting future potential there with building it all on the right foundation.
Right. And it just makes so much sense to me when you talk about brands like Hasbro and whoever, even with someone like, we just did a music and NFTs chat last week. Even, a small artist, I say small, but, someone with 20, 30, 40, 50,000 fans, followers, like they don't want anyone in their ecosystem to be frauded. It just makes so much sense, as these brands and influencers come on board, that they're going to do right by the people that they're telling, okay, come to this place. I know you don't know much about it. Like, this is a token. This is what a wallet is. Okay. Like, they want to set them up for success, and security and safety is the number one thing. So it just makes so much sense to me that this is where people's heads are at and where it's all going.
Right. And it's important to note that this is like our launch is the early form of this, right? It's the MVP. We still have tons and tons of building to do to get to Gauss 2.0. And then after that, we have tons and tons more building to do with a lot of the other pillars. I keep calling them pillars because I think they are fundamental necessities of what I envision the metaverse being. And that's where all of this is geared. I know it's such a buzzword these days, but for years I viewed, like, well before it became this public talking point, I've had my own views of what I've envisioned it being. You know, the lit RPG genre, the Sword Art Online or Ready Player Ones, that's what that is, right? It's a world in which metaverses exist. These very immersive virtual environments, be it a game or explorative space or whatever, or workspaces. Like, there's plenty of dystopian stigma with that too, from the original, Snow Crash. Neil Stephenson's Snow Crash was a dystopian story when he first coined the term metaverse. But I think if done right, if built right, there's plenty of positive to it.
Of course. Lauren, I see you made your way up to the stage. Are you with us?
Hey, yeah, somehow I've had an OG version of Twitter on my phone for years and never noticed. So I had to re-download the app and everything.
There you go, the old-fashioned update.
Yep.
Thanks for hopping on.
Thanks for having me. Hey, guys.
Gave you a little follow from the Gauss account. Everyone in here should have gotten one because we love you for supporting. Definitely look to your left and look to your right. Give a little follow, some love to everyone in the room. Please share out the space if you haven't yet. Lauren, if you don't mind, can you just do a little quick intro for yourself?
Yeah. Hey, guys. I'm Lauren, obviously. Some of you guys have seen me in the Discord chat. I am the CSO here over at Gauss, and recently I've been working on our white paper, which, Gary, do I have permission to say it now?
Yes, you do.
Awesome. Well, guys, our white paper has officially been linked and uploaded. You can now have access to it in our official link section of Discord.
Let's go. A lot of big things happening. Lauren,
Well,
what?
Do you want to go ahead?
No, you go for it.
I was going to say, while we have you up here, because we talk plenty, Lauren, but we don't talk too much during AMAs or things like that. Do you want to talk about some of, what we're intending to have you do on the team in the future down the road? Because for a lot of people, they're like, why does Gauss have a CSO at this point?
That's literally my question. Because of all of the team pages I've looked at for projects, I've never seen a CSO. So that was exactly my question. I love it.
Well, and it's, before she speaks, it's important to note that she is actual, scientist, a legit field researching, does scientist. So go ahead, Lauren.
Yeah. So Gary and I, over the years, we have talked a lot about how we have major philanthropic endeavors that we want to be able to achieve. And, you go out in the world and you see how a lot of projects, they have a ton of money at their disposal, but we don't really feel like they always have the best ways of really getting them out into the community and making change within, their local communities on a macular or a micro or macro scale. And we're really hoping that with Gauss, we can create our own not-for-profit that's separate from Gauss that will also be able to run our own research initiatives down the road. We're hoping that some of these initiatives, obviously, like, they'll support Gauss's cause, they'll support up-and-coming projects within the DeFi and Web3 space, and others will focus more on actual issues that are involved within our local communities. So we're really excited to see what that's going to grow into. There will be a new white paper for that will be launching before Gauss 2.0 comes out, so everybody will be able to understand and see the ins and outs and what we're planning.
Yep.
That's awesome.
And so it ties in that some of our research and development will be very public, very like we want the public to benefit from a lot of what we're going to be doing and building. And in those veins, we can do that with the NFPO. There will be also proprietary development that isn't housed in the NFPO, but she'll be overseeing both those areas and the NFPO. So that's the scale of thinking here with everything we're doing and developing. Our timelines are very long. That doesn't mean we won't be executing with milestones along the way, but we have plans through 2023, 24, 25, getting into 30, where some of our long-term goals are. Because we're just seeing more and more and more advancement across all spaces in this orbit. And to me, a lot of the AI development that we're seeing with Stable Diffusion, Imagen, DALI, all those things is still in this space. I think in 10 years, you're going to see AI procedurally generated virtual environments and things like that. So
we're
already seeing that too, even with researchers, to where they're using like machine learning and AI in order to accomplish things that, it would take us years to sift through the data. And, with machine learning, they can do it in a matter of, hours or days after just a little bit of guidance. So we're really excited to see what we can accomplish.
Right. And I think the larger public is very, very unaware of so many advancements that happen because they're happening at breakneck paces right now. AlphaFold, released a library of, 200 million proteins, which 5 years from now is going to be looked back at as one of the greatest medical advancements in recent history, in my opinion. But it launched and the scientific community went, wow. And then you have new James Webb Telescope images that, or new other areas of development. It's just so rapid. Really looking forward to us being part of those developments and cycles.
Yeah, and at the same time, I love the long-term vision. I love the marathon mentality. That was another thing that attracted me to this ecosystem. We're in a place where, so many projects that were pumping just even 8 months ago are, very, very quiet.
Or gone.
Exactly. I was trying to be, I guess, a little bit more PC, but no, you're absolutely right.
It's worth note, like even within the orbit of projects that are in our, focus, maybe even peripherally or whatever. What it's like, it feels like every week or every other week, we see a project where we know the founders, and they're just going under again and again and again. And I think one of the biggest things, and this is a fair segue into it, that we don't see in this space is startup teams treating it like a tech startup or a fintech startup or whatever. It's a it's a business. You're raising millions of dollars and don't have a plan. You don't have legal or accounting or marketing or whatever other area. That's really an important fundamental. This isn't, you're not playing with $10 and a small membership of friends with a treehouse here. You're raising millions or tens of millions of dollars and starting a real business. I think so many lose the fundamentals in all of that. And that's another part of what we want to help solve for, as part of our curation process. Since we're doing that level of due diligence, it only makes sense for us to ensure that projects launching with Gauss are set up for success. If they have an operational shortcoming or legal or whatever, we can help shore those up and plug them into resources to help them succeed. You know, we're looking forward to starting an incubator accelerator program and all of that. First half of next year is when most of that will be formed, because that's what it is. You know, I think this space needs that, because you have venture capital that wants to get involved in this space because they want to make money. That's what they do. They profit. By and large, many of those are writing 100 checks, hoping that one pans out. Many of those institutional money groups, they're not really plugging tons of resources into making sure those projects are successful. They're just like, here's some more money, kids. Do great things. Oh, you failed? Well, that's a loss out of this fund. Next.
Yep, that you're so right. So, I mean, and everything just kind of had that degen flavor. Not everything, but so much of it, just because
95 or 98% of projects in this space, I would say.
Just looking for the quick bag, selling the hype.
Yeah.
So, it's really nice to be part of something that's truly building, that's truly putting brick by brick, building something with a strong foundation. We've talked about the nonprofit and the just positivity and security that we're injecting. So all great stuff. Alex, there's a lot of great sound bits in there too.
Yes.
All right.
Still here.
We're all right. So we're on the same wavelength. We're communicating without communicating. No, I love it.
Well, and I think that's a fair segue to this part. That for us, it's been important to you can build in stealth and die in stealth. I think a lot do fall into that trap. But for us, again, I think we could have put everything together and launched in the peak of the bull and raised a bunch more money and all that fun stuff. But I think it's more important to build and launch something in this space to prove that we're actually launching something, right? We're not focused on raising money before people have something to point at, look at, or hopefully pretty soon interact with. Because the early blockchain, there's not going to be a ton of project tokens in there. So interaction within the blockchain, like any initial launch for a blockchain, it's pretty ghost town-esque. Ethereum, nobody was on it before tons of people were on it, right?
Right.
That's just a phase of it. But it's part of why we've wanted to build and why we're looking at launching the MVP November 12th.
There it is.
Yeah.
All right. I think we're supposed to have a drum roll for that.
There it is.
All right.
Nonchalant.
Yeah.
No.
Less than 2 weeks away is the launch date. Earlier this year, we had a launch date set, and it's been pushed twice, all within Q4, because I think that's important for projects in this space to recognize as well, because so many are like, we could have announced a launch date long ago and missed it or moved it or whatever. These fake hype cycles or fake it till you make it mentality, I think, is a very toxic aspect of this space. So, that's why we're very confident and why we waited till, today to say that's the launch date. That's when the blockchain's going up. That's when you'll be able to go look at the Explorer and poke things.
That's exciting. And it's already, Discord's already blowing up. Who was the first to leak it?
I don't know, but anyone that guessed, I mean, I've hinted at it. I posted at 11:12 numerous times. I didn't say anything. I just said, it's time at 11:12.
Oh, nice.
And various things like that. And I think our Gauss guest launch, anyone who's been participating in that, and you're trying to change or edit your guess, or you've guessed multiple, that's a no-go.
Disqualified.
Yeah, I see we have one person who's guessed 4 times in the last week. And the very last one he made was the 12th. But
Oh man, so
yeah,
close but so far away.
Yeah, you
right.
got to play by the rules. This is the
Yep.
blockchain. Everything's on the blockchain.
But yeah, so we'll be doing that, setting everyone up with the temporary roles and letting you all enter that drawing. I wonder how many even there are in the Gauss guest launch channel that guessed right. I can look.
Does Austin need me to make him a Twitter handle?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna do that. He's done so much on the tech side for us. I'm gonna do something for him so he can join us on the next spaces.
Oh, you know what? So at first blush, it looks like there were only 5. Because sorry to Xenosaz, but you guys aren't eligible for that anymore. You both guessed the 12th. But it looks like we have 5 non-team members who guessed the 12th. And for what it's worth, they guessed the 12th before they joined the team. But
Oh yeah, that's interesting.
yep, I don't think they'll be too upset. That's one of the interesting things about our community too, right? I think there's something to be said for building a community right and to doing it over time while we still have more time to interact with the community more. Because as I get into fundraising, looking to have 10 to 20, 15-minute meetings a day with venture capitalists and things like that, I won't be in Discord as much. And I'm already not in there as much as I was a month or 2 ago. But our community is amazing. We have people winning their, daily NFT and then turning right around and giving it away because they've already won some and they want to spread the love. And I don't think you see that too often in the space.
No. In a word, no. It is amazing, and I do see some people in the audience. And again, I'm not. This is the last time I'm gonna to offer, but I would love to just jam with. I see Ferret, Z, Sean, Keys, Queese. Sorry, I don't know. We got see this. You talk to people on Discord, and you lose a lot of the context. So I would love to jam with a community member just to see what drew you to Gauss and why you're here and why you do things like give away your Ferro cards. I just think it's such an important part of who we are. Our fireside chat next week on Twitter Spaces is about building community in Web3, and I think the core of this one, and I've been here for almost 2 months now, is really solid. So I commend you guys for that.
And for anyone that's here, most of the people here are also in our Discord community. Don't think we're only moving to Twitter Spaces. I'm still doing our holders hangouts in Discord, which I've committed 2 hours a week to hanging out in our NFT holders voice chat, probably playing games or whatever. But
we're just diversifying. We're not.
Yeah. Oh,
sorry, I bugged there for a second.
I guess I can say this too. We have a bunch of AMAs lined up the week following launch. I don't know. I haven't checked in their communities yet, but I have a one-on-one with Sim on the 14th in the Sphere Discord. I have AMA with Obsidian on the 15th and with Cardinal House on the 16th. And I think we have some podcast appearances and stuff like that are also being lined up because post-launch, we're going to be pushing pretty hard into all the things.
Amazing. Really, it's going to be a really exciting holiday season in Gossland.
Hey, Gary, are you able to explain any details for November 12th currently? Or we're going to wait till that some stuff happen first?
I mean, I've tried to say this a number of times. So people aren't thinking we're going to have some sort of ticker tape parade or big launch event. A connection of mine actually was like, we could have coast to coast parties. You could have one in New York and one in LA and one in Atlanta for launch. And I was like, no, that's not what this is, man. Like, one, that stuff costs money. And having thrown large events, even just club events, it costs money. Two, this is the MVP launch. You know, I think it's very noteworthy. It's a milestone. It needs to be celebrated, but then we're going right back nose to the grindstone and working. So I don't want to say it's going to launch with like no fanfare whatsoever, but it's just nobody remembers the launch of Twitter or Facebook or Amazon or Google. No, literally no one, unless you were there, the 24 people that were there for those launches, nobody remembers it. It's not, you know, 5 years from now, there's going to be a dozen or two or 3 dozen people that are like, I was there for the Gauss launch. I don't remember everything that happened because like a link went up, we went and looked at an Explorer and we're like, oh wow, the blockchain's clearing blocks. Like the terminal, the Explorer, things like that, they're not really like really interesting. You're not watching some action-packed movie, right? A marketing team, they can hype things up like that. I am like checking a box. It's a milestone.
Well,
Back to it.
are people going to have their gang instantly to count
No.
and to
So,
hold and to love?
so to answer that one, no, not at launch. Launch is the blockchain launch. We're still deciding on, and we'll probably talk to the community more about when we want to migrate those over. We are working, so we just had another meeting with Circle. We want to get USDC in the ecosystem. And we have I can't announce that, but we have another plan to have another bridge into the ecosystem, into and out of. But at launch, there wouldn't be a ton for them to do. And it would potentially hamstring us with Iron NFT sales. So until we're able to get some of those in and out roads with the ecosystem, we won't be migrating the Iron NFTs over. But now that we're launching, we should be pushing some more of those sales, which have been moving pretty steadily, by the way, over the last few months. They've been almost like clockwork. The end of month review of NFT sales has been like steady.
Mm-hmm.
So
we do have a couple questions, Gary.
Yep.
One is this is from Nick. Any specific plans for how to deal with mass adoption and the inevitable crypto regulation, especially in the U.S.?
So two big, very different questions. Mass adoption. Some of the things that are preventing us from getting there are the like egregious amount of scams, fraud, and all of that. Same thing that you saw with early e-commerce when nobody trusted putting their credit card information online, right? Same exact thing. We're also going to need to get a lot more existing Web 2 or legacy brands, agencies, platforms, technology tied into it. That's why everyone's talking about Web 2.5. I'm not particularly a huge fan of the term, but I understand the meaning because you have to. Web 3 is 2025. Metaverse is 2030. So those things are part of the mass adoption equation. Regulations, that I'd love to say what I expect or what I want to happen, but what I expect will happen is generally for regulators, policymakers, and things like that to do the worst possible decision first, right? I don't think they're going to come up with the best solutions first. Best solution would be a globally adopted universal set of regulations that everyone agrees to. That would be the literal best solution, right? That's a utopian solution that everyone comes around a campfire, sings Kumbaya, and, you know, we have peace in the Internet of Things, or the Internet, not Internet of Things, Internet for the future. But I don't see that happening. I see a lot of ham-fisted attempts to overregulate something because they're trying to protect SWIFT, current banking industries, things like that. So it's going to be rough. It's going to be a rough 3 and 5 and 10 years. I've also said that I don't see a universe in which we don't have a knock on the door from the SEC or FinCEN down the road, any of those agencies. There's no way to do things to make them happy when you can't continue to just guess what lines they're going to paint on the road after you've already traveled it.
Oh, I like that metaphor. That's a good one.
And that's really what it is.
Yeah.
Like, you're looking at the rear view, like, well, we're over here and you're trying to paint lines and build a road behind us at this point, like that. They're still looking at 2018 blockchain industry. They really are. DEX's AMMs, the XYK model, is all really new. And they're still not even sure on how to deal with that. They probably won't be for years until we're already moving on to things like the Omnipool. Like, that's just the nature of rapid early progress. We're in a frontier industry doing frontier things and breaking new ground. So we have legal that we're working with. We have an in-house counsel. We're doing everything we can to, everything we're doing is going to be done legally, to the point where if they come down and try to drop some crazy hammer, we'll move the headquarters of the business outside the United States before I close up shop. That doesn't make sense. If they want to over-regulate and stifle innovation, it would only make sense for us to move global sooner rather than later, which is something we've talked about internally.
What's the alpha and where Gauss would move to?
There's a number of different options. I don't want to say where, but there's a handful of different, I'd say a half dozen different places in the world that are very crypto favorable. The short list of that kind of looks like Dubai, Sweden, Hong Kong, a handful of others. So
interesting. You're fantastic at answering questions very thoroughly and articulately, Gary.
well
done.
I appreciate it.
I didn't know you didn't love Web 2.5 though. As
a term, it's a bridge. It's just it's a placeholder thing, like so many of these things. Like, I wasn't, Jack Dorsey was like Web 5. Like, why?
Yeah.
And Facebook's changed to Meta. That's another one I'm not a fan of. And it's mostly because I'm not actually opposed to Zuckerberg spending billions or tens of billions of dollars in this space to build hard tech. I'm a huge fan of that. He has the capital, spend it. Every other entity in this space will benefit from it in 5 and 10 years. If you're in it for the quick buck, you're upset about what they're doing. If you're in it for the long haul, you're excited that they're building hard tech that you can't build right now.
Yeah.
I think that's, I'm not a huge fan of Facebook, Meta, or Zuckerberg in particular, just for all the things that have happened and the sort of predatory algorithmic advertising, that very dubious approach in mass manipulation for consumerism, right? Like that, not a huge fan of. But the fact that they're spending tens of billions of dollars developing so many really cool things, some of it's stupid. Some of it's absolutely just stupid. They want to have the metaverse. Microsoft wants to have the metaverse. That's stupid. It's a stupid goal, right? Like, Gauss won't have the metaverse. We'll be a hub and we'll have access to a number of our metaverse environments, but it's a large network of virtual environments, right? Not one virtual environment. So,
Well, I think, and by branding themselves as Meta, they're going to have 60% of the world, like people my mother's age, and everyone else thinking, when we are in the metaverse, thinking that they're in the metaverse because they're on the whatever Meta Facebook.com and whatever they do with it. They're going
I
to
don't,
think that that's, what's happening, but
I
I think
don't
they're
know
just
that they survived that long. If I'm being perfectly honest, on a long enough time scale, let's say 20, 35, and 40, I don't know that the business models of Meta or Apple or Google survive that long. They have to compete with us at that point in the future where we're saying, oh, yeah, we're taking a very tiny fraction. You launch a game with us, I don't want 30 or 50% of it like you see with Steam, Apple, Google, all of those. We're going to take a very, very tiny fraction. That's what they have to compete with. And they, unfortunately, for themselves, have such large, bloated businesses built on huge take rates that they're either going to have to trim down drastically, like go on severe capital diets and piss off lots of shareholders, or die the way that Blockbuster did. Like, you either evolve or die. And for anyone who thinks it's not possible for any company of that scale, I could point at 100 examples of very large successful companies that went away, and that's what we're looking at in this space over that time scale. So I don't know that I agree with that one necessarily, that our parents are, even us when we're 50 and 60 are going to look at Meta and go, that's where it is. Like, no, it's going to be, you have Meta, you have Microsoft, and you have 1,000 other options for metaverse environments. And my goal is to see users be able to hop between those environments with their avatars, with their assets. I think that's, the key. For them, they could very well say, you cannot bring in outside assets. And then that cuts them off from the rest of it, right? They're like, well, we're not getting money in that transaction. We don't want it here. Steam's already looking in that direction.
They're 50% or whatever they're going to ask for.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just not going to work.
Yeah, well, it should be interesting to see it shake out. But until then, we'll be building. I love love the questions.
I don't want to say either, by the way, that we're, proposing ourselves as like, we're meta killers. I think that's really dumb. When any startup is like, I'm going to kill one of the top 10 companies in the world. I think that's a really dumb approach. That's not at all what I'm saying. I'm saying that this space is what they're competing with. We're a part of that. They're going to be competing with decentralized builders in this space that are, looking at, again, remarkably small transactional revenue, very small percentages. So
this is kind of irrelevant, but kind of connected to what you're talking about, because while you're talking about their bloated budgets and everything that Facebook can do, it reminded me of a story I heard of a guy that swindled Google and Facebook out of combined $100 million. So the guy created fake invoices, fake email addresses, the whole deal, and he literally was paid out $23 million from Google and $98 million from Facebook back in 2015 Facebook. So we're not even talking recently. So that long ago, they were able to just let that kind of a figure float away to speaking of scams. So it made me think of, how much capital they have to work with to do some real damage.
Well, yeah, and that's like, if you look at the $36 billion Meta has committed to this space, or to quote unquote the metaverse, and all the tech involved in, the hard tech, the peripherals, the human interface devices. That's $36,000 million. like when you talk about large numbers, most people just have a very difficult time fathoming that, right? You could lose $100 million out of that, and it's a percent of a fraction, or a fraction of a percent. It's less than 1% by a significant amount. Your orders of magnitude to the right of that decimal point. Like it is $36,000 million, a lot of freaking money to be spending on something. I just shared an article with the team internally about the cost to research things, right? And a lot of people don't understand where all that money is gone or what they're building with all that money. But looking at other things, other advancements, and how much it took to build them, autonomous driving, the Xbox, things like that. It's really interesting at that scale. Like I already recognize that by 2025 or 2030 or whatever point in the future, our burn rate for research and development is going to be ludicrously high. R&D is one of the largest overhead expenses for any tech company, period. That's the nature of that beast. You can't innovate at that level without spending a ton of resources.
Mm-hmm.
So
Amazing. John, good to see you. I see you down in the audience. Guys, thanks for popping in today. Want to really just thought we'd start with kind of a nice informal casual convo to kick off our tenure here on Spaces. To Gary's point earlier, it is not going to be the only place where we hold events and connect with our community, but it is going to be one of them. So thank you for joining us outside of the Discord environment, and want to invite anyone to either come up to the stage or to shoot another question in the chat. John, feel free to come up. Oh, Nick had a follow-up.
Yep.
Do you guys have any plans to get involved with legislation and maybe trying have an effect on ignorant minds of the legislative branch through education?
Yes. As a very short answer to that one, yes. When that falls in our time scale, I have some familiarity with work, and it's unfortunate to say that, like, to affect policy in the United States, you have to be in the game of lobbying, right? It takes money to participate in that, right? That's very unfortunate, but that is what it is. That's the world we live in. I'm not a huge fan of the oligarchic structure, but yes, we will be looking to do that. But I think it's important to note that a lot of what we're doing, even at these very early stages, we're very mindful about the long-term effects of things. So for instance, right, it would be very easy for us as a layer one blockchain, especially a curated layer one blockchain, centralized, to say we're going to KYC everybody in the ecosystem. That would make a lot of regulators very happy to see a fully KYC blockchain. We're not doing that because I think it sets very, very bad and dangerous precedent for the entirety of the blockchain industry. That's not to say we won't have KYC within the ecosystem, separate from KYB, two different things, know your customer, know your client, because I do think there's some valid value to having KYC measures in place for anti-money laundering and fiat on-off ramping. There's a very high chance that we won't do that. We'll leave it up to a third party like USDC, Circle. They already do all of that. And then for certain projects or partners or brands, if they want a KYC, that's fine. Another example would be, I think down the road, we will likely have a cross-ecosystem opt-in policy for data use, data sharing, rather than an opt-out policy. And I think that's an important distinction because personally, I think that businesses profiting so heavily off of consumer data is part of what's led us to where we are in a lot of globally negative things with consumerism and mass psychology, that algorithmic manipulation I was speaking of earlier. I think if people want their data to be used, they should be compensated for it as well. Those are the types of things that internally we'll be looking at, and then legislatively we'll be pushing for sensible regulation. What that looks like, still a lot to do before we get there. Yes is the short answer to that question, though, Nick. And we've
Awesome.
already talked about it, by the way. A lot of these questions you were talking about earlier, I answer things a lot at length. I haven't really come across a question that surprised me yet, because we have been building this for 2 years. I've been talking about this for 2 years and planning, right, with so many different people on board. I've not encountered any questions that, off the top of my head, that have been surprising, that I haven't already been thinking about. Not to say we're Nostradamus or anything crazy like that, but lots and lots of forethought.
Here's one I haven't heard the answer to. Maybe you've answered it. I just haven't heard the answer to. Where did the name Ferro card come from?
That's one I came up with. Before even presenting it to the team, I was just kind of stuck on the name. But it's ferromagnetic. The name of Gauss actually comes from Carl Friedrich Gauss, a mathematician physicist who had a great many accomplishments throughout his life, even his early life, his teenage years, Gaussian distribution, things like that. So there's like this magnetic component. If you look at our logo, to me, it's a bunch of circles coming together, a sort of magnetism for communities, which is also where Ferro cards is just another play on all of that. Ferromagnetic cards. They're magnets for rewards, keys to exclusive opportunities. That's where Ferro cards came from.
Very interesting. Thank you for sharing. John, I thought John went back to the audience. I was hoping we'd hear from him. This has been great. Gary, what do you think about this? There's some FUD going on in places, but I think this is going to be a great addition to our repertoire of offerings here. How do you feel the first spaces?
I think different platforms have pros and cons. I think there's a lot more reach to be gained from Twitter Spaces than within, our own little community where we're talking to our existing community. The idea behind Twitter Spaces, as I understand it, is to grow our community, to be more open, right? They don't have to come join the Discord to listen in. I think that's important, and I'm here for it. But there's, I definitely want to keep having some conversations within our Discord community. I think that's going to still be a core aspect of it. I'm probably not going to be as connected on Twitter. I try to still go look at comments and stuff all the time, but it's going to grow to a point where I'm likely closer to the Discord community than Twitter. That's just the nature of things, So I think it's definitely awesome, though.
Absolutely, and I think you hit the nail right on the head. It's a game of both. As Gauss grows, I think this is going to help enhance it. And like we can't say enough about the existing community in Discord. They're just awesome. And that for now that's where we live. But thank you guys for reaching out and connecting. Some of you I know opened new Twitter accounts just to be here today, so that's awesome. I really, from a meta, no pun intended, perspective on NFTs and crypto, there are a lot of other conversations that are going on at all hours of the day that you could just pop in, pop out seamlessly, and make new connections, new forms of learning about this stuff and growing yourself in whatever capacity you're looking to grow. So definitely check it out. We heard an amazing announcement. November 12th is the launch. You'll see content about it. Yeah, this has been great. So I gonna do one last call for questions, and then yeah, we'll move it back over to the Discord to hang out for anyone that's still hanging.
Yeah, and I was going to say, for anyone listening to the recording or new here with us, we love questions. That's something else we highly encourage within our community. So hop over, ask questions.
I've learned so much from the community, from how this stuff actually works, from to the evolution of the ferret and how that became a big thing in our community. So education is pivotal.
Indeed.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking at a whole bunch of people. I can't thank you guys enough again. Alex, I think we got a lot of good stuff here.
Yes, we did.
Alex, do you have one last question for Gary? He just got off of saying he has every question already answered. Do you have something that's going to stump him right now?
Nothing off the top of my head, and I also don't want to say anything that might lead into a different conversation about Gauss. So we'll just keep it like that just for now. I think we'll keep it for next time.
All right,
we gotta save some alpha for the next call or so.
All right. Well, I'll ask one. I don't think anyone's asked them.
We have one question that popped up. Any last minute extra alpha from Marquis? Last minute extra alpha. What is disclosable? Ooh, I could hint at post-launch we'll be announcing our grant program. I don't want to go too deep into specifics, but projects looking to launch with us, as I've said, we want to help them be set up for success. Part of that will be a liquidity grant, but we'll also have a grant program that those who make it through the curation process can apply to. We'll be providing not insignificant amounts of tokens to them. Yeah, I don't want to say more than that. So that's the extra alpha I'll give you for asking.
And I'll add on that I know that someone asked this question in Discord earlier, when the Gleam winners are going to be announced, and that's going to be sometime next week.
Yep. Yeah.
P.S. $50,000, $50K in giveaways.
Well, it was 50K. That's something else, by the way. That whole thing, there were 460 NFTs. They're selling at 150, so it's actually 69,000, not just 50.
69K. So, yep. Like if you're someone doing an objective audit on the kind of messaging, it's very rare that you see any posts that say, mint a Ferro card, come buy our NFT, like so many of the 98% of the projects that we were talking about earlier. But giving away that much is awesome, and I think that needs to be said. So yeah, there it is. I said it.
A lot more to come.
Amazing. So, guys, thank you so much for being here. I'm gonna close out the space, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Yeah, and thanks everyone for listening in. Thanks for hosting, Rob and Alex.
Thanks for coming on. November 12th.